The story begins in a distant land, where two cities are locked in constant rivalry and have never found peace. These cities, Huayuan and Xuanhu, each have distinct traditions. Huayuan is ruled by women, while in Xuanhu, men hold leadership roles and are regarded as superior to women. One day, Xuanhu is defeated in battle, forcing them to send their only heir, Han Shuo, to Huayuan for a political marriage with the second daughter of Huayuan's ruler. Meanwhile, in the heart of Huayuan, the third princess is causing chaos and is being chased by guards trying to stop her. During her escape, her horse accidentally collides with a merchant, throwing her off until she is saved by none other than Han Shuo, the young master from Xuanhu. This meeting, however, was orchestrated by Han Shuo to catch the attention of the second daughter, Chen Qian, but instead, the one who appears as the third princess, Chen Qian Qian. Chen Qian is known for her boldness, fiery temper, and frequent rule-breaking. She's spoiled and often self-centered. Instantly captivated by Han Shuo's good looks, Chen Qian declares she will marry him the next day. In reality, this is all part of a script written by a screenwriter named Xiao Qian, who has been tirelessly revising her work for a film adaptation. Days pass as Xiao Qian refines the story, and when she finally completes it, exhaustion overtakes her, and she falls asleep. Miraculously, she awakens to find herself trapped within her own script. During this time, Zirue, Chen Qian's assistant, then arrives to inform her that her wedding attire is ready. But instead of being thrilled, Chen Qian is furious, knowing that her character is fated to be poisoned by Han Shuo on their wedding night. Meanwhile, Han Shuo plots to kill Chen Qian in order to marry Chu, whom he sees as having greater potential. They plan to elevate Chu to the throne to access the Dragon Bone, a mystical relic capable of curing many ailments, including his heart condition. On their wedding night, Chen Qian is extremely anxious. At one point, she accuses Han Shuo of planning to poison her, dramatically eating and drinking everything in sight to prove her point. When nothing happens, she suspects the poison might be on Han Shuo's lips, leading her to immediately kiss him. Unexpectedly, after the kiss, she feels dizzy and collapses. The next day, the physician explains that Chen Qian was merely intoxicated. When she asks about Han Shuo, the physician reveals that he has been imprisoned and is scheduled for execution that day. Desperate to save him, Chen Qian tells her mother, Cheng Zhu, that she is pregnant, though she has no idea who the father is. Not only that, she also persuades her mother that they can manipulate Han Shuo into claiming the child as his own. Later, Sang Qi, the envoy of Cheng Zhu, reads out a decree from Cheng Zhu that Han Shuo is released from his sentence. Shortly after, during a meal with her mother, Cheng Zhu's assistant accidentally notices that the virginity mark on Chen Qian's hand is still visible, revealing that she lied about her pregnancy. Realizing that events are unfolding differently from her script, Chen Qian, along with 3 writers of that era, devises a plan to bring Chu and Han Shuo closer together. Chen Qian then invites Han Shuo to the Royal Academy, where she challenges Lin Qi, her childhood rival, to a bet on who has the most talented subordinate from Lin Qi's follower or Han Shuo. During the duel, Han Shuo, already frustrated with Chen Qian, contemplates using the opportunity to kill her. But just as he's about to act, Chu arrives unexpectedly and steps in to stop him. At that moment, an emotional confrontation erupts between Chu and Han Shuo, resulting in a physical fight where Chu tears Han Shuo's clothing, causing people to question his dignity as the young master of Xuanhu. With her plan failed, Chen Qian silently wishes for someone to come and break up the fight. Miraculously, a handsome man suddenly appears, leaving everyone captivated by his presence. The man, Pei Heng, is revealed to be Chen Qian's childhood fiancé. Furious over the unfolding events, Han Shuo orders his spies to assassinate Chen Qian that very night. Later, Chen Qian visits Han Shuo to apologize. But Han Shuo is too distrustful to accept her apology. In an attempt to prove her sincerity, Chen Qian removes her outer garment, reasoning that since his clothes were nearly stripped off earlier, it's only fair for her to do the same. Outraged by her behavior, Han Shuo scolds Chen Qian, calling her shameless and saying that such an act cannot compensate for the humiliation he endured in front of everyone. In a fit of frustration, Chen Qian threatens to walk around the city in her revealing outfit, only for Han Shuo to stop her, reminding her that she is now his wife and cannot act so freely. Feeling helpless on how to apologize further, Chen Qian begins to remove her other garments, but Han Shuo quickly covers her with a blanket, accusing her of trying to seduce him. Han Shuo even suggests that the baby Chen Qian claimed to be carrying might be Pei Heng's. However, his suspicions are dismissed when he accidentally notices that the virginity mark on Chen Qian's hand remains, revealing that she faked the pregnancy to save his life. As a result, after Chen Qian leaves, Han Shuo immediately halts his spies from carrying out the assassination. Not long after, with the recent whirlwind of misunderstandings, Chen Qian begins planning a surprise for Han Shuo's birthday. Soon, she sneaks into his room to secretly check his shoe size and body measurements, only to be caught by Han Shuo, who instantly becomes suspicious. At that moment, Chen Qian asks him to close his eyes as she measures his neck, while Han Shuo, misunderstanding her intent, assumes he's about to be strangled. That evening, they spend time together, gradually uncovering more about each other, and a new understanding begins to blossom between them. The following day, determined to cure Han Shuo's illness, Chen Qian takes the bold step of stealing the dragon bone and boiling it. When the dragon bone's theft is discovered, the city ruler, Chen Xiao, is furious. But upon hearing that Chen Qian has been poisoned, Chen Xiao's anger quickly turns to worry, and she willingly offers the dragon bone to her youngest daughter. Meanwhile, touched by Chen Qian's sincerity, Han Shuo decides to give the dragon bone to her instead. To his surprise, this gesture wakes Chen Qian, revealing her poisoning was merely an act. She then begs Han Shuo to take the dragon bone for himself. At the same time, Chen Xiao grows suspicious, feeling that her daughter has been used by Han Shuo. The next day, Shang-Chi announces Chen Xiao's decision, where Han Shuo is accused of inciting Chen Qian to steal the dragon bone. To suppress rumors and calm the people, it is declared that Han Shuo will be punished by having his bones taken as a replacement for the stolen dragon bone. In a desperate attempt to stop this, Chen Qian declares she will renounce her title as princess if it will save Han Shuo. Elsewhere, Lin Qi receives the news that her family's mine has exploded after being struck by lightning. Meanwhile, a crowd gathers outside Chen Qian's residence, demanding her life as a sacrifice to the sky goddess, blaming recent calamities on her theft of the dragon bone, which resulted in hundreds of miners remain trapped in the collapsed mine. Determined to take action, Chen Qian sneaks out and sets out to demolish Mount Fu to save the trapped miners. Unexpectedly, the plan succeeds, and she helps rescue the miners trapped within until nightfall. That evening, crowds flock to the mines, demanding Chen Xiao execute Chen Qian for destroying the dragon bone for personal gain and recklessly blowing up Mount Fu, a source of livelihood for generations in Huayuan. On the other side, the hundreds of miners Chen Qian saved plead with Chen Xiao to forgive the princess for saving their lives. In the midst of this chaos, a miracle occurs. A burst of oil suddenly rises from the ground beneath Chen Qian's feet. Seeing this, the once angry crowd transforms their outrage into admiration and respect for her. With her hand injured, Han Shuo assists her with her meals. Once her hand heals, Chen Qian, guided by Han Shuo and Pei Heng, prepares for the upcoming exam to determine the heir to the throne. It was revealed that the exam encompasses 3 areas: literature, state governance, and martial arts. Elsewhere, Lin Qi is seen bribe someone to ensure that Chen Qian will be her opponent in the martial arts competition. Some time later, the day of the examination arrives. Though completely inexperienced in fighting, Chen Qian struggles to hold her ground, enduring a relentless beating from Lin Qi, who, fueled by vengeance, mercilessly whips her. Watching the fight, Han Shuo silently counts each strike, vowing to repay them after the exam. In the end, through sheer determination and strength of will, Chen Qian manages to defeat Lin Qi. A few days pass, and the results of the exam are finally announced. Chen Qian, who never aspired to inherit the throne, is certain her elder sister, Chu Chu, will take the top rank. However, to her shock, it is Chen Qian who is named the highest-ranking candidate. Growing suspicious, Chen Qian confronts Han Shuo, who reveals that her exam results were manipulated. Not long after, During her first day as the young city ruler, Chen Qian is immediately faced with a mountain of responsibilities. Frustrated and overwhelmed, Chen Qian, who never wanted this position, slips on a banana leaf she had carelessly discarded earlier. In the midst of her irritation, she learns that bandits from Mount Weiming have been harassing local merchants. As the young city ruler, Chen Qian is expected to lead the troops to resolve this issue. Seeing an opportunity, Chen Qian hatches another plan to bring Han Shuo and her older sister, Chu Chu, closer together. Because of this, she immediately agrees to set off for Mount Weiming, accompanied by Chu Chu and Han Shuo. Once they arrive, Chen Qian secretly instructs someone to set up a situation where Chu Chu might need rescuing, hoping Han Shuo will come to her aid, and the experience will bring them closer. Soon after, while inspecting the surroundings, Chu Chu accidentally stumbles and falls into a trench. Sensing something amiss, Han Shuo goes after her, suspecting that Meng Guo, the notorious bandit leader of Mount Weiming, might be behind it. After searching extensively, Han Shuo finally locates Chu Chu trapped and quickly steps in to help her. Upon their return, Han Shuo and Chu Chu soon realize that Chen Qian had orchestrated the entire incident in an attempt to bring them closer together. Frustrated and annoyed, Han Shuo immediately walks away. Not long after, Meng Guo and his men suddenly launch an attack. With Han Shuo and Chen Qian now separated, there is no one left to defend them. As a result, Meng Guo captures Chen Qian and takes her back to his hideout on Mount Weiming. At the same time, when Han Shuo realizes what has happened, he sets out to rescue her immediately. During the journey, Chen Qian is terrified, fearing that Meng Guo might force her into marriage. However, her fears prove wrong, as Meng Guo and his men now see Chen Qian as their new leader. That night, Han Shuo and his forces arrive at the Mount Weiming hideout to rescue Chen Qian. At that moment, they find her intoxicated, rambling in a drunken state. Soon after, Han Shuo escorts her back, and before they leave, he explains to Meng Guo's men that since they now consider Chen Qian their leader, they must follow her and pledge loyalty to the young city ruler, serving under her command. In the end, Chen Qian's mission succeeds. She manages to bring the Mount Weiming bandits under control without any bloodshed. Sometime later, a man named Su Ziying is seen plotting to trap Han Shuo and Chu Chu. During this time, Ziying's servant delivers a message to Han Shuo, claiming that Chen Qian wishes to meet him at the inn's storage room later that evening. At the same time, Zi Rui, Chen Qian's assistant who overhearing this, immediately informs her of the scheme. Alarmed, Chen Qian rushes to the inn's storage room to save Han Shuo, while Zi Rui heads off to confront Ziying with the intent to knock him unconscious. Not long after, Han Shuo arrives at the inn's storage room, unaware that he has inhaled a toxic smoke. When Chen Qian arrives shortly after, she finds Han Shuo looking visibly unwell. Just then, one of Ziying's men locks them inside. Under the influence of the smoke, known as mimosa essence, Han Shuo begins acting out of character, pursuing Chen Qian like a ravenous lion. Terrified, Chen Qian tries to evade him, but despite his struggle to control himself, Han Shuo eventually collapses. Seeing this, Chen Qian panics, but Han Shuo regains consciousness just in time, solemnly vowing that he will never harm her. Moments later, the door is finally broken open, and without assessing the situation, rescuers drench them both with water. Afterward, Chen Qian is summoned by her older sister, Chu Chu, who tells her that, being spoiled her entire life, she's become accustomed to taking things that aren't hers. Understanding her sister's words, Chen Qian admits that she has no desire to be the heir and is willing to pass the title to her. Chu Chu, however, reveals that she wants more than the throne, as she wants Han Shuo as well. Back in Huayuan City, Ziying, harboring resentment toward Chen Qian, devises another trap. He plants a map of Huayuan's defenses in her room and accuses her of plotting a rebellion. Joined by guards, Chu Chu searches Chen Qian's quarters but finds an unexpected surprise instead, a risque painting of Pei Heng. The news of the painting quickly spreads, sparking gossip throughout the city. Embarrassed, Chen Qian seeks out Pei Heng to apologize, only to be met with a confession of his love for her. In response, Chen Qian rushes to her mother, suggesting that she and Pei Heng would make a perfect match. However, Chen Xiao advises her daughter to consider marriage with Pei Heng. That same evening, Han Shuo receives a visit from his father's envoy, who urges him to devise a strategy to attack Huayuan City. In the midst of their discussion, Han Shuo is informed that Chen Xiao has ordered him to set a date for his divorce from Chen Qian. The next day, Chen Xiao challenges Han Shuo. If he is truly devoted to Chen Qian, he must endure the symbolic hot bracelet, a Huayuan custom meant to prove loyalty. To demonstrate his love, Han Shuo endures the searing pain as molten metal is poured over his wrist. Later that night, Han Shuo returns to find Chen Qian avoiding him. The following evening, on the night of the Chinese Valentine's Festival, Huayuan City is bustling with celebration. Amidst the festivities, Chen Qian overhears whispers among the townspeople that, to prevent the divorce, Han Shuo willingly wore the bracelet, a painful symbol traditionally worn only by commoners and slaves. Overcome with sadness, she regrets having harshly rejected him. Zirue then hints that Han Shuo has a grand surprise planned for her that night, though he keeps the details a mystery. Filled with worry, Chen Qian rushes to her sister, Chu Chu, asking her to help stop Han Shuo. To her shock, Chen Qian discovers that Chu Chu and Pei Heng are working together to capture and corner Han Shuo. Disappointed in both of them, Chen Qian searches through the crowded festival until Han Shuo suddenly appears. During this time, they talk, and Chen Qian confesses her regret for her harshness and neglect. She also admits that, all along, she has loved him. With her heartfelt confession, the two reconcile, restoring their bond. In the warmth of the moment, Han Shuo suddenly lights a firework, and Chen Qian quickly tries to stop him, but it's too late. Meanwhile, all of Han Shuo's operatives throughout Huayuan City are surrounded. Unexpectedly, they see fireworks lighting up the sky. Apparently, Han Shuo has changed his plans for the city attack, all for his love for Chen Qian. To show his sincerity, he chooses to forget the rivalry between their two cities. Realizing this, Chen Qian kisses Han Shuo, a tender moment witnessed by Pei Heng. The next day, Chu Chu remains suspicious of Han Shuo and asks Chen Xiao to permit a search of his quarters. Chen Xiao, frustrated by Chu Chu's insistence, becomes angry, and in the heat of their argument, suffers a stroke. Meanwhile, Chen Qian assumes the duties of the city ruler. Soon after, Bai Ji, Han Shuo's assistant, arrives to report that Lu Peng was found dead that morning. Knowing this, Chen Qian begins investigating Lu Peng's death and discovers evidence pointing to Lin Qi, whom she subsequently imprisons. Not long after, at the council meeting to discuss Lin Qi's case, Chu Chu proposes a death sentence for her, but Chen Qian rejects the idea. That night, Chen Qian visits Lin Qi in prison, informing her of the decision to exile her to Xuanhu City instead. She also hands Lin Qi a gold plaque that can be exchanged for money. Unwilling to accept it, Lin Qi throws it aside, demanding to know why Chu Chu has abandoned her. The following day, as Lin Qi is escorted by guards, a group of assailants ambushes them. Trying to fight back, Lin Qi realizes that the attackers were sent by Chu Chu. During this moment, Lin Qi is tragically struck by an arrow to the chest and falls into the river. When news of Lin Qi's death reaches Chen Qian, she grows alarmed, realizing that events are veering off from the story she wrote. Fearing for Han Shuo's life, she contemplates eliminating his character. Sometime later, a new rumor spreads that a musician named Su Mu has mysteriously vanished, and people suspect Han Shuo of foul play, as he was the last to see him. It turns out that Chen Qian orchestrated this setup herself, leading to Han Shuo's imprisonment. Pei Heng later reads out an official order from the young city ruler, Chen Qian, banishing Han Shuo to the Nanjiang village and forbidding his return. Not only that, Pei Heng also hands him a divorce letter from Chen Qian. Heartbroken, Han Shuo confronts Chen Qian. However, with a strong determination, Chen Qian declares that her love was a mere act. She reveals that she never lost her martial arts skills and only pretended to be weak to manipulate him. Additionally, in front of Han Shuo, she destroys the heart-shaped seal he crafted for her. Overcome with painful memories of their time together, Han Shuo realizes he's been deceived. In a final gesture, he tears off the bracelet he wore for her, injuring his wrist in the process. After he leaves, Chen Qian collapses in tears, weeping in the pouring rain over her decision to send him far from her life. Elsewhere, it is revealed that Lin Qi is still alive. The gold plaque that Chen Qian gave her had indirectly saved her life. At the same time, the guards escorting Han Shuo pause to rest, only to find their food has been poisoned, a scheme by Chu Chu. She then approaches Han Shuo and proposes an alliance to incite rebellion and seize the throne of Huayuan City. During the night, Chu Chu and her allies launch a surprise attack on the city, encircling the government palace. The next morning, as Chen Qian wakes up, she finds a letter waiting for her. Irritated, she examines it, preparing to respond in anger, only to go pale upon seeing who handed her the letter. Dazed and thinking she's still dreaming, Chen Qian tries to go back to sleep. Eventually, she learns the city is under attack, with Chu Chu having seized control, removing anyone who opposes her rule. Pei Heng, upon hearing the news, rushes to find Chen Qian, but the guards prevent him from entering. When he tries to force his way in, Han Shuo intervenes, kicking Pei Heng aside. As Chen Qian attempts to aid Pei Heng, Han Shuo forcibly pulls her away. During this time, he tells Chen Qian, bitterly, that he once loved her deeply, but now despises her. Frightened, Chen Qian begins to cry, which causes Han Shuo to stop. Seeing this, he realizes that Chen Qian never used her martial arts skills to defend herself, a sign she might have been lying all along. Later that evening, Pei Heng insists on seeing Chen Qian again, claiming that Han Shuo is cruel for forcing her to work while her hand is burned, showing no remorse whatsoever. Alarmed, Han Shuo hurries inside to check on Chen Qian's injury. The following day, Han Shuo betrays Chu Chu, resulting in a fierce duel between them. In the heat of the battle, Chen Qian pleads with Han Shuo to surrender for his own sake. Shortly after, Pei Heng advises Cheng Zhu to spare Chu Chu and sentence Han Shuo to death, suggesting that he was the mastermind behind the rebellion. In prison, Chen Qian visits Han Shuo. To save him from execution, she proposes that they marry officially so his status would be protected. The next morning, a crowd gathers to witness Han Shuo's impending execution. At that moment, Chen Qian pleads with her mother to spare him from the execution, but Cheng Zhu refuses. Desperate, Chen Qian runs to Han Shuo and makes a bold declaration, offering to do the unthinkable in exchange for his life. Upon hearing this, the crowd gasps, shocked by her resolve. In grief and sorrow, Cheng Zhu and the people mourn what they believe to be the tragic end of Chen Qian. Upon returning, Cheng Zhu shows an expression of bitter resolve, revealing that she anticipated Chen Qian's plan. Not only that, she also claims that she has accepted her daughter's death, effectively severing their bond as mother and child. Soon after, furious over Chen Qian's betrayal for Han Shuo's sake, Cheng Zhu realizes that her daughter sought to end the problem with Chu Chu to leave her as the sole heir to the throne. That night, following Cheng Zhu's orders, Chen Qian is prepared for burial. Yet, suspicious of her supposed death, Chu Chu, driven by jealousy, sends assassins to ensure her sister's demise. Just as Chen Qian is about to be killed, Lin Qi appears and rescues her. As she leaving her homeland behind, Han Shuo decides to take Chen Qian to Xuanhu City, vowing to protect her and start anew. Not long after, upon arriving in Xuanhu, Chen Qian meets Han Shuo's parents. Meanwhile, back in Huayuan City, Cheng Zhu discovers Chu Chu's attempt to kill Chen Qian. Unable to accept such betrayal, Cheng Zhu reveals a long-kept secret that Chu Chu is not her biological daughter, but the child of the late Commander Pei. Apparently, Cheng Zhu had always trained Chu Chu rigorously, intending her to inherit her mother's position as Huayuan's military commander. But, to her surprise, Chu Chu instead harbored ambitions to become the city's ruler. Upon learning the truth, Chu Chu, far from grateful, blames Cheng Zhu for not telling her sooner. The next day, Chu Chu confronts Pei Heng and demands to take over as military commander. Chu Chu then devises a plan to stop the shipment of black stones to Xuanhu City, threatening to withhold supplies until they return Chen Qian. At the same time, word of her act reaches Xuanhu, and Han Shuo quickly realizes it's a trap set by Chu Chu. After consulting with Xuanhu's leadership, they decide to retaliate against Chu Chu's demands. Because of this, they arrange for Ziying to stage a fake abduction of Chu Chu and bring her before Chen Qian. Shortly after, surrounded and cornered, Chu Chu draws a sword, attempting to strike Chen Qian, but Han Shuo intervenes, taking the blow meant for her. Later, the first princess, Xiao Mei, a skilled physician, examines the wound and reports that although the sword narrowly missed his heart, it pierced his lung, leaving Han Shuo with limited time. Knowing this, Han Shuo requests that they proceed with the throne inheritance ceremony. During the ceremony, each candidate walks along a red carpet and burns incense to honor the deities. When Chu Chu takes her turn, the sky darkens with a fierce wind blow, signaling that the gods do not bless her as the rightful heir. Once calm returns, Xiao Mei steps forward to burn her incense, and the skies gradually clear. Finally, it is Chen Qian's turn, but she hesitates, fearing that stepping on the carpet might send her back to her real world. She doesn't want to leave Han Shuo behind. At that moment, Han Shuo, despite his critical condition, calls out to Chen Qian from the other side of the carpet. Seeing him collapse, Chen Qian rushes to him, crossing the carpet. Suddenly, a miracle occurs, and a cloud of fortune appears above them. The crowd cheers with joy, but as they celebrate, Chen Qian slowly fades away. After this incident, Xiao Qian wakes up in her room, feeling bewildered and in disbelief. She checks the news, where she learns that the actor cast to play the lead role in her script bears a resemblance to Han Shuo. During a phone call, she is informed that filming has been postponed for 3 months because the actor, Han Shuo, was involved in an accident and suffered a lung injury. Struck by his resemblance to the young lord, Xiao Qian decides to visit him in the hospital. When she meets the actor, Xiao Qian asks him several questions about Huayuan and Xuanhu, but he doesn't understand what she's talking about. Because of this, she realizes that these details were never written in her script. However, the actor confides that he can no longer distinguish between dreams and reality. Recognizing this as the young lord she once knew, Xiao Qian realizes that fate has reunited them. Both are overjoyed, grateful that destiny has brought them together once again. Moral lesson from the story: never try to marry someone who saved you from a horse accident. They might just plan to poison you at the wedding. Also, if your true love turns out to be a character from your own story, maybe it's time to wake up.